Hey everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Time for React. You guys have made it. Now the real work begins. The fun work.
Okay. Kind of last minute struggles, huh?
Luckily, I was still logged in somehow. I was worried
Yes.
for a second.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I said, it worked the other day. I don't know what the deal was. So,
no worries. We'll get it figured out.
yeah. Cool. Well, I'm late. I guess everybody else is probably already here, right? So let's do this
Yeah,
thing.
looks
Let
like
me
it.
get a share my screen over here. Which one do I want? Let's share this one.
All right, everybody. This is Brian's first time teaching, so turn your camera on and just wave and cheer him on.
You're gonna do great. I'm
Thank
excited
you.
to learn.
Oh yeah. Good times. Oh, I'll be right back. I gotta quit and reopen.
Well, like I said, I'm really excited for you guys that have made it this far. This is a really fun module. React is really cool, and it's one of the most fun technologies of like the last decade. So, and like a ton of the internet is built on it. So you're now into like the modern stack and what people actually use to build stuff now. So it's great.
All right. I had an update, so that's fun. Let's get this guy over here. Oh, okay, cool. Can you see my screen over here? Has React on it?
Yes. Yep.
Sweet. All right. Okay. All right. Welcome to React. React is going to be cool. So the first thing. Oh, I got another system preference I gotta do. Sorry. Are you good? I think it's good. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So in React, what we're going to do is every day we're going to start a new project. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through like how I do it typically, and then every day before class you'll like start a new project. So when you come in, we'll be ready to roll and start building stuff. Cool. All right. So first thing I do, I go to GitHub and I look at my giant head right there, and I go to my repositories and I just create a new one. And I'm just going to call this React Day 1. And then you can make it public or private, whatever you want. I always add a README even if I don't use it because it makes it easier for me to clone it. And then you don't really need to worry about the git ignore stuff right now or the license. So I'm going to create the repo. And the reason I did the README is because it actually then gives you this repo. It doesn't give you that like little blurb about, hey, you need to clone this thing, blah, blah, or whatever. So yeah, so just make it repo, empty repo, no big deal. And then after that, I go to GitHub Desktop. If you're using command line, then you can do this through the command line. I'll move this Zoom thing out of the way. Let's see. Maybe not. Okay, so if you are using GitHub Desktop, you can go up here to this little arrow guy and go to add, and then you can clone a repo. And then under the github.com, that's going to be whoever you're logged in as, your GitHub account. So I'm just going to refresh and then get that repo I just made, which is React Day 1. Down here is the path that it's going to take you to. You want to make sure or try to make sure this is not in OneDrive if you're on a Windows machine, because OneDrive will make its own kind of paths up and it'll mess you up big time. So documents, GitHub, and then the name of it is pretty standard, what you're going to do. So we're going to clone that. And so then now we have it on our local machine, right? So GitHub is remote. That's our remote repository. This is our local machine. So then we have it here. So here's our current repository at the top left. We won't worry about branching right now. So then I just open my VS Code and I go to open. Of course, there's a couple ways to get to open, as y'all probably know by now. You can go File, Open Folder. Oops, didn't mean to open that. Or you can go down here where it says Open. Yeah, so let me open. So I'm going Documents, GitHub, and then React Day 1, and then Open. Okay, cool. So now I have that open. Oh, there we go. And it's just only has a README in it, right? Just a blank repository, nothing else. So now we can actually make a React app. Get my notes up over here on the other screen. Okay.
Sorry, I'm behind. I got
You're good.
behind for a second. I just cloned it, and then what did you do after you clone it?
Are you doing GitHub Desktop or command line?
I'm on the desktop.
Okay, and so you cloned it down.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Yeah, it shows current repository in the upper left corner.
Cool. Yep. So yeah, just go to VS Code, and you'll either have that welcome screen, or you can go to File, Open Folder, and then whatever path you put it at. So mine was Documents, GitHub, and then the name of the repo. So React Day 1, and then just click Open.
Okay, gotcha.
Make
Alright,
sense?
thanks.
Cool. All right. And I was gonna say, if you have a question or anything, please jump in. I'm not looking at the chat or anything while I'm doing this, so just interrupt me, and that's perfectly fine. We'll get it done. All right. So let me go back over here again. So yeah, so every day through this module, just before class, do those steps. Just have a repo ready to go so we can jump right in and get to coding, please. All right. So now is the fun part. We're actually going to make first React app. So to do that, all you got to do is in your VS Code, you're going to open your terminal. So you can either go File, maybe somewhere up here is Terminal. I don't know where. Oh, right here. Under View Terminal to open it up. Or you can just do Control and the little tilde/backtick symbol at the top left of your keyboard. And that'll open up your terminal as well. You can do ls if you're on a Mac to see where you're at, or I think it's dir on Windows. So it can tell you like what path you're at right now. So we're just, again, it should match the top left over there. We're in the React Day 1, and then README is all we have in there. And some of this might be review. I'm just gonna, spit it all out there. So if anybody needs to get caught up. Cool. So now the fun. To make your first React app, you're gonna do npx. Not npm, npx, create -react -app space, and then the name of the app you're going to make. So I'm going to call this React Day 1. Like that. It needs to be one word. Don't split it up. And I don't believe you can use capital letters anymore. So once you do that, hit enter. It's going to start doing all sorts of fancy stuff. While it's doing that, there are other ways nowadays to make a React app, or many different types of apps. There's a thing called Vite, it's VITE. I know a lot of people like to go with that because I think it's a smaller footprint. It makes less files. It's not as opinionated as React is. I've only touched it one time. I'm more comfortable doing it this way, and this way is fine as well. But tons of options out there. So what React is going to do, it's going to install a bunch of packages, npm packages, and like everything that React needs to do its React-y kind of stuff. I was going to mention the npx. So in your node stuff that you've done so far, you've done like npm start or things like that. Like in testing, I know y'all did a bit with npm. npm is node package manager. npx is what it does is it says it simplifies running node packages to automatically installing and executing them, ensuring version compatibility and avoiding the need for global installations. So it's makes it easier, I guess. We're still going to run our app with npm start, but for creating the actual React project, you use npx. All right, see what we're doing. Okay, so once it's done in your terminal, you'll see this cool success message here, and it'll tell you a bunch of different stuff that you can do. So npm start is going to start your development server. So this is our front end server, the actual React server that does all the cool React stuff. You can do some test stuff. I don't know what run eject does. I've never done that. The big thing to note right here is that you got to CD into your project. Because if you run npm start right now, it's not going to do anything. Let's try. Yeah, it's going to error out because currently we are still in that React Day 1 folder. We're not in our project folder. Okay. So we're going to CD into our project folder. A little shortcut on the command line. If you type in the first few letters of where you're going and hit tab, it'll autocomplete for you. If there's more than one thing that matches whatever you've typed so far, it'll show you what those are. And I think you can select one. But yeah, so CD into that. Cool. Now if we hit ls or dir, you'll see we're in this folder here now with our node modules and all this jazz. It's very cool. So this is a React app. If we run npm start now that we're in that folder, then it's going to pop up our app, and it's going to pop up in my other window over here. All right, so here we go. Right there, bam, React app. Magic. We're done. That's all we got to do. Not really. So let's look through here a little bit. Let me get the terminal down. I made it way too. There we go. All right. So when you were watching the videos with Kent Dodds, he went through a lot of like what React is underneath the hood, like how to build it from scratch and all that stuff. We're not doing any of that, but it's good to know. It's good to know that it's not magic, like it comes from somewhere. So I believe he went into like the index.html, showed the root here, that's basically the whole app is like grabbing onto that idea of root and making all the magic happen within that. And then also in index.js, this is where we first see our first bit of JSX, our components. And this should look sort of familiar from JavaScript. The document I get, element by ID, and all that. So it's all just JavaScript, just really cool things built that we get to use way easier than doing it ourselves. Which I always say, like, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, there's so much cool stuff, and we just get to just use it for free. Yeah. So understand this on a high level of that it's not magic, but don't worry about it because we're gonna do some magic. Cool. So couple things to note. So the node modules folder, anytime you install an npm package, it's going to have a folder within this node modules, and it's crazy long. One thing we will talk about later with that git ignore that we just left as is, it ignores the node modules. So whenever you put your code on GitHub, your node modules folder is not going with it. So if you were to get somebody else's code or somebody else got your code, they're going to need to do an npm install to get that node modules folder. Okay, within the app. If they're doing the other one, then they're going to have node modules that they don't need and like outside of it. That makes sense. I know when I first started, I would get a project that I was like, oh, I want to try to do this project, and I didn't know I had to npm install the node module, so nothing would work, and it was pretty frustrating at first.
It took a minute for my React to install. What was the command you did immediately after that finished?
Okay, yeah, so when you get done, you'll get that success message, which, oh, I guess it went away. Yeah, but it tells you, you know, you can do these cool things, but all you want to do is CD into the React project, so whatever you named it. And then if you do npm start, it'll run the React app.
Thank you.
All right, so okay, so a segue to that, npm start, where does that come from? Anybody know?
The JSON.
Yep, the package JSON, yep. So in here, this is gonna have all your scripts. So when you run npm, you can do npm run start, but you can just do npm start. I think it's shorthand or something. And that's the only one we're gonna mess with. The other ones, like build, would be for production stuff. And then again, test, if you're running like test. And again, I don't know what eject does. I don't know if anybody uses that, but yeah, so this is where that comes from, npm start. And this is what it actually runs if you ever considered it. So if you run node react -scripts start, that's what npm start is actually running for you. And I think when you run it, it actually shows you that, maybe. At work, we have scripts, and it'll be like this long, like remove this folder and put it in this other thing because our front end and back end are completely separate. So you can do some really cool things in the scripts whenever you get down the line to doing that. And then also in here is your dependencies. So anytime you install a package, you're not only going to get a node modules folder, it's going to show you here what you installed and what the version of it is. And I don't think we'll do any today, but we will eventually obviously get some stuff in there. If your lock folder ever gets deleted, that's okay. It'll rebuild. Just don't do it on purpose. I mean, you can if you want. Okay, so the big ones that we really, so package JSON.
Sorry, real quick. When I try to run the npm start, I get missing script errors.
Did you see the end of your folder?
I'm sorry, what's that? Oh,
Did-
no.
You'll do that a bunch of times, don't worry.
I got something weird about dependencies, and I put it in the Slack channel.
Let's see.
And was that CD into the React Day 1 folder?
The one you made, yep, whatever your project is called.
Okay.
Oh boy, is this yellow?
Yes.
Okay, then it's just a warning. I don't think you need to worry about it right now.
So I did.
Oh, good.
I did a Control-C just to get back to my folder. Should I have done that?
That's okay. If you run npm start, does your app pop up?
It did. Let me try again. Let me make sure it does again. It didn't like pop up this time, but the last one is still there.
Oh,
Let me try
okay.
again.
Yeah, it should. If it's already open in your browser, it won't pop up a different one.
Okay.
It shouldn't.
Then we're good.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah.
Sorry,
So that's
sorry.
that. Oh,
Sorry, one more question.
yep.
So I ran the npm start because I was in the folder. And then I got the yellow, it says compiled successfully. You can now view React Day 1 in the browser folder. And this is Webpack compiled successfully. But it's like I can't type anymore. If that makes sense. Yeah. I'm there.
Okay. Did your React app show in your browser?
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep, you're good.
All right, thanks.
Cool. All right. Yeah, so the biggest ones really to concern yourself with, folder wise or file wise, package JSON, public to a little extent, but mainly source. Source is where we're going to live. So source is going to have all of your components in it. And so we'll just start with our first component is going to be our app.js. They all come with app.js. So this is what you're seeing on your screen when you look at your browser. So you can see like it's got this cool twirly deal here and says edit, blah, blah, all this stuff, right? So that is exactly this here. This is that logo right here. Here's the edit, blah, 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 whatever. And then here's that link at the bottom with Learn React. So this looks very much like HTML, right? Yeah, it's not, it's JSX. So JSX is, what is JSX? JavaScript, something, I don't know. We'll have to look it up. But it's basically, it's what React takes and makes it in, into the HTML in the magical sort of ways. So if you edit this, you can see that it'll edit automatically on your screen. So let's say I kill the image, come back here, image is gone. So we don't have to run live server because we're actually running our React server. Cool. Very nice. All right. So a couple other things, CSS. So there's a couple different ways to deal with CSS. You can do it like per component if you want. You can make a CSS file like this has app.css, which is this guy, which this is exactly the same CSS that you're used to using. Still doing dots for classes, hashtags for IDs. I don't know that I've ever tried to use a element tag. Somebody can try that and see if it works. But most of the time you're going to do classes. You're going to do a lot of classes. And then let's see, the rest of this, you don't really need to worry about unless you're trying to do tests or stuff like that. Yeah, so cool. So let's get to it. Let's make our first component. So in the source folder, go ahead and make a new folder. So you can click the little folder at the top there, or you can just right click and do new folder. And we're going to call it components with a small c. It doesn't have to be, it wouldn't break if you did a capital C, but the convention is component names start with capital letter. Folders are going to be lowercase. So yeah, after everybody's good with making their folder, we're going to put a file in there. So again, you can click on it and do the little file up top there, or right click and do new file. And we're gonna let's do navbar.js. Okay, so pretty simple so far, right? We're just making a file, no big deal. There are extensions in VS Code that you can use. I'll put a list of them out after class. But the one that I have, so there's two different types of components in React. As soon as I say this, forget the second thing I say. There are functions and there are classes. Don't worry about classes. Let me caveat that a little bit. If you have to work at a place like I do that still uses class components, then you don't have to worry about that. But most of the world is using functional components. Okay, and what all that means is that the component is a function, literally, and you'll see in just a second that that's what it is. So just like we did in JavaScript before, you're writing a function. That's what it is. I'm going to cheat a little bit here with this this extension that I have because it's just going to write it for me. So that way I can just walk you through it without typing it all out. So just like, forget about the purple words for a second, but just look at, it's a function, it's named navbar. We have our parentheses to make it a function, right? And then we have our curly brackets so that we can do whatever we want to do inside the function. Okay. The kind of new stuff I think is, I don't know how much importing y'all have done yet, but you do a lot of importing in React. And that's to get things in that you want to use. Okay. So yeah, so y'all can type that out kind of while I'm talking, if you're not already. And then we'll go over it a little bit. So let me talk about React big picture real quick while y'all are typing that. The whole point of React is two big points. The first big point is that it has a virtual DOM that, if you read any of the stuff I put out there or watch the videos, talked about the virtual DOM. And basically what it does is it looks at your application and see if something has changed. And if something has changed, it updates that thing. It doesn't refresh your entire browser every time something changes. Like with JavaScript, if you like filled out a form or whatever and hit submit, typically, you know, it's gonna end up refreshing the whole browser unless you did something else to make it stop doing that. React is reacting to changes in the specific components that take place there. The other thing that it does is it's broken up into those components. So instead of having like all of your code in one file, you're gonna have components everywhere. So you're gonna have a navbar component, and that's like its own little thing, and it's going to become part of your app.js in our case. And then we're gonna have a body component, and then we're gonna have like a footer component. And then within each of those, you can have child components upon child components, and so on and so on and so on. So you can break it down so that you have separation of concerns is a big thing. And it's easier to maintain because you can actually see, okay, my navbar broke. I don't have to go look through 900 lines of code for this thing, unless your navbar is 900 lines of code, which would be crazy. But you can say, okay, something's wrong in the navbar. Let me go check out the navbar. Cool. Everybody got this written out? Pretty good.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So now, if we go back to our app, nothing has changed, right? This is still just our app.js. This is all we're seeing. So if we want to see our navbar in here, we need to do, there you go. So you'll notice on here that we're exporting, right? We're exporting default. I'll explain default in a minute. But we're exporting this function, which has this little div navbar in it, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our app.js and we're gonna import it. So you're just gonna do import, and then that's the name of the function that you're bringing in, which in our case is navbar, and then from, and then the file. So it's not a sibling because it's in the components folder. So we're gonna have to go into that folder to get to it, right? Like the path to it. So we'll just do a /, which will bring us our components folder, and then /navbar. Okay. Just to review some path stuff. The / is your current folder, right? It's like where you are right now. That's your home. And then we're going to go into the components folder because that's where the navbar is living at. And then we want to get that navbar component.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter if it has the .js.
It doesn't matter. I think it'll work either way. I know it'll work this way. I think it'll work. Oh, yeah, it should work that way as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it doesn't really care. And then you might have noticed also when I hit the /, it kind of told me that's where it was. I could click it and kind of helps you out. Cool. And so this navbar right here, the one that you're saying you're importing, this is what your function name is, okay? Which normally you're going to stick to calling it whatever you call the file. But if for some reason you didn't, then this would be import whatever that function name is from, wherever it's at. Okay, cool. So now let's throw it in here. So let's just put it right underneath the header here. All you're gonna do is open up a little JSX tag and get your the component name there, or the function name, and then just close it. It's self-closing in this case. It can be, maybe it might be able to be, you can like open it and close it and put things in it, but typically it's just gonna be like this. So now if we look at our thing, look at there, we got navbar. How cool is that? Got trouble?
Yeah, I still have the image.
You said,
I know
oh, you
that
didn't
you
get rid
took
of
it
the image?
out. I didn't get rid of the image, but I also don't see navbar.
Do you have this?
Yep, I did the import and then right under div class name under the, oh, nope, I didn't do it on the header. There we go, wrong place.
It still should have brought it in. Let's see. You did it
Let's
up
see what I've
here?
got. Yeah, I did it just below the div class name instead of within the header.
Oh, okay. It's way up there up
And
top.
I see. I always have to do it the wrong way first. That's how I learned. Thanks.
That's all right. Yep. All right, cool. Anybody else have trouble with that? All good? Cool. Okay, sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and kill the rest of this stuff. We don't need all the rest of this. I'm just gonna leave the div on the outside and just put the nav bar as itself in there. Okay. So I just left the outside div and then the nav bar. Okay. So that way, when we look at it, all we got is a white screen with a little nav bar at the very top. Took away all the prettiness of it. All right. Let's see. All right, we got 29 minutes left. We're gonna hit this. Let's do a body component. So it's gonna be the same thing we just did. Go to your components and just make a new file. Call it body.js. Just copy what you have in navbar. Make it quicker. Throw it in body, and then just change your function name to body and your little div name there to body. VS Code shortcut, if you highlight something and you want to highlight more than one of that thing, if you hit Control or Command D, it'll highlight both of them. Y'all didn't know that. And you can keep going. If you hit Control D and there's like 12 of them, just all the way down, highlight them all. And then you can just type it like that. Everybody tracking? Cool. All right. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna put it just right underneath my oh, not that. Underneath my nav bar. And if you do if you just start typing it down there, and you can see that this is the component I want. If I click this, it's gonna auto import that for me up top. You want me to do that again? Okay. So if you start to type your component, so let's say I don't have it imported, and I start to type it. So I do body, and then this is the one I want, this component right here. If I click it, it auto imports it right there. Okay, and I have to make sure I close it though, or it's gonna be mad. And you might notice in your terminal down here, if you are, as you're typing, it's updating. So if I go do that, it's gonna freak out because it's like, hey, you got an error, dude. I wasn't done yet, but it's gonna go ahead and tell you there's something wrong. So super helpful. Okay, so now, everybody tracking on that? Cool. Let me know if I'm going too fast, because I get excited. All right, so in our browser, we now have nav and our body. Super cool, right? Let's go to our app.css, and we're gonna get rid of everything except for the app.app class up top. We don't need the rest of that stuff. And we're gonna make a new class, and this is gonna be, let's just call it container. This is my notes here. Okay. So in here, I'm going to paste some styles. So basically, I'm just making a border around the components, kind of separate them out so we can see them a little bit better. I don't think the text align center is necessary because we're doing it there, but it's okay. So I'll let y'all copy that down real quick. And give me a thumbs up when you got it. You got fireworks back there, Jason. All right. I'll paste this in Slack in case anybody is a little behind. Okay. All right. So now if we go back to our browser, nothing changed because anybody know why nothing changed?
Because we don't have a container element.
Not element. We didn't give the container class to anybody. Right? We just made the class, but we didn't actually put it on any of our stuff.
Totally what I meant.
That's what you said. I heard it. Cool. So let's go into our body element, and in our div here, we're going to give a class. You might notice something a little different with that class. Anybody see it?
It's camel case.
Nope. I mean, it is, but why is it camel cased? What does this say?
It's JavaScript.
JavaScript.
Nope. Literally, what does this say?
Last name.
Class name.
Oh, instead of class.
Set a class, exactly. Yep. So in React, so in JavaScript, class is a what's the word? Can't remember the word, but it's a word. It's a keyword. Basically, it's taken. You can't use it because there are classes in JavaScript that you create with the class keyword. So for React, you have to use class name instead. Okay. There's a couple little kind of quirky things like that to watch out for. If any of y'all looked into Bootstrap when I sent it over, if you were to copy over like a navbar or whatever from Bootstrap, everything is going to be class. So you're going to have to go through and make everything class name. Okay. I get at least one or all of you will make that mistake because I know I did a ton of times. I did it like last week. I was like, why is this not working? So yeah, so class name, and yes, it is camel case. Cool, so then we just add our container to it. I'm gonna do the same thing for the nav. I'm just gonna copy that, go to my nav bar, put it in my div there. Make sure I put my space. All right, cool, so now when we look at it, it's kind of broken out a little bit, so it's easier to see. Cool. All right. The other thing I'll show you real quick, and then we're going to do a fun thing. Style, if you want to do inline styling, you have to give it an object, okay? So basically, we're used to doing styling. I don't know if y'all have done much inline styling, but in HTML, you would do style like text, center, or I guess it wouldn't be text center, text align, center, like that, right? Like that's how you would do an inline style. And this is how you would do it in CSS. In React, no, we don't do it like that. In React, we have to give it an object. So the first curly brackets are just like whenever you have anything in React, you can surround it in curly brackets. So like you can surround your class in curly brackets. That doesn't do anything different to that. It's still just a container class. And anything you do, and as we talk about props and passing props, like you'll do those inside of brackets. What matters here is the inner brackets. So this is an object, okay? So if we want to change something in here, so let's say we want to do text align, you're going to do, and as it's kind of showing you here, you're going to do it in camel case, not with the hyphen, okay? So like in HTML or CSS, you would do it this way. In React, you're going to do it this way inside the object. And instead of doing colon, whatever center, I guess, center with this guy like this, we don't do it like that. What we do our colon So an object has a key and a value, okay? I don't know how deep into objects y'all got, but we'll get there. The key is gonna be the React form of the style, and then the value is gonna be either a string or a number. Yeah, most time a string or a number. So like center, right? So this would be the way you do an inline style in React. If you want to add additional styles, you keep staying the same object, you separate them with a comma instead of a semicolon. So then we could do like background color blue, right? So those would be inline styles in React. If you didn't catch that, to get your word wrap, you can do Alt Z or Option Z, and that'll get you word wrapping pretty quick. Let's see if those styles worked. Hey, there we go. Cool. All right. So I know that was super fast on that part, and you'll run into it and not be able to figure it out. And you're like, oh yeah. So I'm gonna get rid of those because I don't need them. Actually, I'll leave them. I'm gonna mess in the body here. Okay, so we have 19 minutes. All right, 19 minutes, we're gonna do a fetch and we're gonna get Pokemon on our screen, okay? So let's go to our body component and I'm gonna do, actually, I'm gonna get rid of this thing here. I'm gonna keep the container. I'm gonna get rid of the word body, okay. All right, so JavaScript, okay? We're still doing JavaScript, like regular JavaScript. So what we're gonna do is, let me show you the Pokemon. Go down, there we go. Okay, Pokemon has this really cool API called Poke API. I'm not a Pokemon nerd or anything, but this is super cool. It's free. You don't need an API key. There are a ton of awesome APIs out there that you do need a key for, and a lot of them are free, but you have to get the key, and it's a little bit more complicated. We'll mess with one, I think, in day 3 maybe. But this one is easy to get into, and it's helps with JSON and all sorts of cool stuff. So I'll post this after class if I didn't already. So what we're gonna do is we need a URL for our fetch, right? I don't know if y'all have done fetch or not. I put a little blurb about it, but basically fetch is a way to reach out and get some data and bring it back, okay? Or to post some data, but it's a way to communicate over the interwebs via your app. Sure, sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna get this URL here. Okay, I hit submit. That's what I want. I'm gonna copy it. And we're gonna go to our code. And we're gonna do a fetch statement. I'm gonna paste this function here. Copy that. Okay. Oh, I'm using a Windows keyboard on a Mac machine. Annoying. All right. So don't worry too much about this right this second. We'll go over it. To do the JavaScript stuff, it must be between when you create your function, like the first curly bracket, and the return. Okay, inside the return is JSX only. So like if you need to like get user data or something, or manipulate some data or whatever it is, all that happens in between there. You can do stuff outside of it, but typically that's for other things that we're not going to get into. So inside of there, that's where you do all your JavaScript stuff. Okay, it's not a separate file. Like everything is here, okay, in your component that has to do with that component. Okay. we are gonna set a little state real quick, and we'll go over state more on Saturday. But basically, state is a variable that when it changes, that component gets re-rendered. Okay, so kind of refreshed that component. Okay. So just trust me on that for now. We'll get into it more deeply on Saturday. So we have a variable, just think variable, called Pokemon data, and we're going to fetch from the API to get that data back and put it inside that variable. Then we can display it on our screen. Okay. Makes perfect sense, right? Good. Okay. All right. So we are gonna make a button though, real quick. I like buttons. Let me do a button. Actually, let me just copy this code here. I'm gonna paste this code in Slack so you guys can just grab it real quick. Look at that guy. Okay, this bit that I just pasted, that's to go before your return. And then the second bit, starting with the button, goes inside your return, inside your container. So I'm posting now. And then just make sure at the very top you have this this use state like this, that you're importing it. And give me a thumbs up when you got that copied in there. Have I lost anybody yet?
I'm not entirely lost. I think I'm just going slow.
Is the button code inside the div after the return?
Inside this container div?
Yeah.
Yep. This Zoom is weird. I can only see like 4 people at a time.
The button's working for me, but I'm seeing alt text for the first the original image.
Okay.
But it works.
Yep. Yeah, it does that on mine too. We can add some conditional stuff later to fix that.
This is awesome.
Cool. So I hear good things. So you're seeing this little Pokemon, and as you click, it goes through them.
I have a use state is not defined error.
Okay. Did you put it at the top? Up here?
Yes,
And you're still getting the error?
correct.
Let's see. Is this state inside the body?
I see it. I have React without an E, so it's racked. That's my
Right.
problem.
Gotcha. Very good. Oh, stuff on. There we go. Now I can see everybody.
Can you
Yeah.
paste all the code like in order in the,
Yep, I'll post the whole shebang.
thank you.
There you go. All right, I'm gonna start walking through what we got going on here. Okay, so we have the state. Again, just think about that as a variable that when it changes, the screen's gonna, that component's gonna re-render. we have a button that on click on the button, we're going to call this function, okay, which we defined above. You'll notice that on click is not a lowercase c. So in HTML for a button, the on click would be lowercase c, and then we would pass a function like in quotes, right? So we don't do that here. You can do the function without this first anonymous fat arrow bit. That's called fat arrow, by the way, in case you didn't know. But I believe it then renders immediately. So if you want to wait till the actual click occurs, then you're basically calling an anonymous function here for the function itself. So don't think too deep into that. Basically, you want to do it like this with the function parentheses and then the fat arrow and then your actual function that you're calling with parentheses. And remember that this is when you have a function name like this, you're calling it. Up here when you're defining your function. Okay, so this is invoking or calling, this is defining. Okay, all right, cool. So when we click the button, we are triggering this function. This function is an async function, which basically all that means is that it's going to happen, and we're gonna wait for the results to come back with just a wait here. Okay, so it happens asynchronously, meaning I believe it means that like the code keeps going until, and once this gets whatever it's asking for back, then it triggers this bit. So like if we had like a counter going like automatically or something, it wouldn't stop because we called this function. If that makes sense. It will. Cool. So when we click, we are triggering this function. I just have a random ID here so that we could get random Pokemon. This is a pretty standard way of getting a random integer. You don't have to read too much into that right now. Just trust me, it's just a random number. So the fetch, which is what we're trying to get to, again, we're awaiting it. So we're saying, do your thing. I'm going to wait here until I get back whatever I'm getting back, and then I'll handle this. And so the fetch takes in a URL. And so in this case, this is the URL that came from our Poke API. And it's not this exact one. I did it with an ID so I could just get random ones each time. In all the documentation though, it's all here and it's all cool. What we're getting back, if we look back, am I logging it? Yeah. So with a fetch, oh, have y'all done try catch blocks? Have y'all heard of those? A little bit. Okay, cool. It's a really good way to make sure your code works, and if it doesn't, you can handle it. Well, last thing you want is for your page to just not work, and then somebody be like, "All right, I'm leaving." Yeah. So all it means for those that don't know is I'm going to try to do what I want to do. If something breaks, then it's going to come to the catch. It's going to catch that error and then do whatever you tell it to do. So you might pop up a alert here saying, "Hey, sorry, something went wrong. Please hopefully not please refresh, but get a coffee, come back later. I don't know, whatever. Say something." Cool. Okay, so the fetch is going to reach out to this URL, and it's going to, based on the API, which we know that this is going to get us a random Pokemon, it's going to bring back the response. The response is going to be either good or bad, or okay or not okay. If it's okay, if it's not okay, it's going to throw this error. So not okay. If it is okay, then we'll move on down, and we're going to console log that response. Okay. So that response, if we look at our console here, I don't know what the red is, but so like for random ID 46, we got this response back, and this response, okay, is true. So that was that first line that we looked at right here. So it's good. So we're going to keep going. And then we get back this object right here. So this is all Pokemon info on that one Pokemon. with ID of 46 right there. So this is JSON data. Have you all messed with JSON data? A little bit, not at all. Okay, so basically it's an object is what it is, that has arrays and strings and numbers and other objects within it. So it's a way to kind of package up data and send it back and forth. In order to access these things, you have to drill down into what you want. So for instance, if we want the name, we're gonna have to come into this object and then go down here and get the name, right? So if you look at the code, this is the JSON data that we just saw. And then again, we awaited the response. Okay, so that was just from here. And this is very common. Anytime you do a fetch, you're gonna have this, if it's okay, or if it's not okay, do this. Otherwise, I need the response to be in a JSON form, so then I can start messing with it. So very, very common here. And then, so we get it back. So we have that JSON data, that big object we just saw, right? Right here, this whole big thing right here. We're then gonna store this guy in that Pokemon data state variable we just made, okay? So instead of doing like Pokemon data equals whatever, for state variables, they have a setter function, which is this guy. So this is the actual variable, and this is the function that's going to set that variable. Okay. You never want to attempt to set a state variable with like variable name equals whatever, because React doesn't handle that the way it handles this. And again, we'll get deeper into this Saturday. So when we go to the set Pokemon data, we're taking that big old JSON object and we're sticking it inside this guy. So now this guy has that entire object inside it. Okay. So then down here underneath our button, we have a couple things going on here. So we have where we're putting Pokemon name. So right here, Pokemon, and then this is the name, and you'll notice that it changes every time we get a new one. So what's happening is right here, we're doing a ternary operator. We can go over that on Saturday too. But basically it's an if-else statement inline. So we're saying if we have Pokemon data, if this variable, the state variable has data in it, so it's not null anymore, it actually has data, then I want to go into that Pokemon data and find that name key. Okay, so remember it's an object has keys and values. And I want to display that. If there's not any Pokemon data, then I want an empty string. I don't want anything there. So I think if we refresh, yeah. So see, there's nothing there now because Pokemon data is null. We don't have anything. Once we click it, then Pokemon data has something in there to display. So it's going into this JSON object and finding that name key and displaying the value Machamp, whatever that one is. I can never get Pikachu on here. I always try. That's the one I know. All right, so that's how we're displaying the name, right? So we're making sure there is data there. If there is, we're just going into that object, grabbing the name, displaying it. If not, nothing. And then for the image, same thing. We're seeing if there's data there. If there is, we're seeing if there's sprites there. If there is, we're seeing if there's sprites.front default there. If there is, we're going to set this source attribute right here to that front default. Okay. If there's not, we're not setting it. So to do that with our JSON object here, we're seeing if sprites exists, which is right here, right? We're going into there, seeing if front default exists. Oh, there we go. And if it does, we're then setting this URL right here, which is just the image address, to our source. Okay, I know that one was a little longer. Make sense? Anybody totally lost?
What are sprites?
Sprite is just an image used for all sorts of stuff, like games, basically. Like you would have a sprite for like every different like arm swing and walk and stuff like that.
Always within images?
Sprites, you mean? Like, are we always going to
Mhm.
use it in an image tag?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yep. And it's, I mean, you can, this could be a JPEG, this could be whatever kind of image. In this API, they're using the sprites. Cool. Well, it is already 1 minute past time. And that was super fast. I hope that makes it. Any questions? Anything? Anybody's head hurt?
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Okay, good.
No, not too bad.
Cool. Okay. React is awesome. We're gonna do some cool stuff with it. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. If not, then I'll see some of y'all Friday at 200 OK. If not, the rest of you Saturday and do cool stuff.
Awesome. Brian,
Thanks for
super
great
excited.
talk.
All right.
See
No
you
problem. See
Friday.
you later. All right. Bye-bye.
Before you leave, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. The way you like to use your GitHub desktop, are you able to like save the way we usually push through the command line just through the GitHub desktop?
Yeah, you can do anything you can do on the command line in GitHub Desktop. So for instance, this is what I did today, right? These are my changes.
Yes.
So if I want to push them up, I just have to see it. Right down here on the left is the commit. So you just type, whatever commit message you wanted. So I could say, first commit or whatever. And you can give a bigger description if you want. And then you're going to commit to whatever branch you're on, which we just have the one branch. So commit to main. And then you'll see up top or on the right here, there's push to origin. And that's going to push it to GitHub. So once you click that, yep, then you can just go back to your github.com. And if I refresh this, then you can see it's all right there.
Oh. All right.
Yeah. To me, it's like way easier than command line.
It is. You don't have to type in a lot of
Yeah,
things. Yeah,
exactly.
that's pretty quick. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, and it automatically updates as you go, so you don't even have to add them in there. You just commit and push.
Yeah, yeah. Anything you change. So if I go back, so right now, of course, the change is gone because I already submitted it, pushed it.
Yes.
And then also you can see your history here too. Just for fun.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so if I go back to the code and I just add whatever, then it's going to be reflected right there.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And then if you do something you want to get rid of, you can just right click on it and just discard changes. And then just discard. That's gone.
Mm.
Yeah, there's nothing that I've ever had to do that for GitHub or for Git that I haven't been able to do through here. Like I've never touched the command line.
Wow.
So yeah. I know some developers would probably hit me with a stick for saying that, but I mean, why make it harder than it has to be?
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. All too good.